Hey everybody, welcome back to a new yearly series I will be running on my channel where I give my personal takes for the best, worst and weirdest movies of the year, this year being 2024. The awards will be as followed: the most underrated film, the biggest disappointment of the year, the most trending or the biggest movie of the year, the worst movie of the year, and finally the best film of the year. But before we get started, I just want to point out that this is not an objective list. This is not the Oscars. It's just my opinion on my channel. So if you disagree, you can let me know in the comments, but please be nice about it because I am a very soft little boy. Now let's get into it.
It's not enough. Few solid niggas left, but it's not enough. Few bitches that are really stepped, but it's not enough.
Now, I know this pick doesn't exactly make sense as it was a huge blockbuster in a pre-established, critically acclaimed franchise, but just hear me out. I've already made a video on this movie, so I won't waste too much time on this. I'll probably only talk about it for a minute or so. But to summarise my previous video, is I did like this movie. I thought it was a well-rounded and perfectly acceptable sequel for a movie that I really liked all those years ago. Now, I know that it has been criticised for being bland and safe, but I think that criticism is unwarranted. When you make a legacy sequel so many years after the original, it's going to be difficult to take the franchise in a whole new direction without disappointing the original fans. I mean, this film had enough of an original story to stand on its own. Off the top of my head, the only movie that has really been able to stray quite significantly from the story of the original was Blade Runner 2049, when they added like the whole new like Officer K, a subservient replicant sort of thing. But even then, that was sort of the only difference, and the story was very similar apart from that. So, all in all, I'm saying this film's underrated because I've seen a lot of movie critics and commentary channels talking about how this movie wasn't that great. And again, you know, that's their opinion, but I really like this movie. I think it's a great movie. And if you don't like it, you're wrong.
Few solid niggas left, but it's not enough. Few bitches that are really stepped, but it's not enough.
Now, I really love Francis Ford Coppola, which I'm sure, being a movie YouTuber, has surprised no one. He's one of the most well-respected and critically acclaimed filmmakers of all time, you know, with many classics in his filmography. So when I heard this legend of cinema was making a new passion project that he'd spent years working on, you know, been years in the making, I had some really high hopes. Didn't match my expectations. Now, I know this is an overused joke that was made about one of Francis Ford Coppola's most famous films, The Godfather, but I find this film so insisted upon itself. And not in the way that, you know, The Godfather is quote-unquote insisted upon itself, but I think in the actual sense. The dialogue in this film is particularly bad. I think it's so exaggerated and unnecessary, you know, like no one talks like this. Even in a dystopian future, no one would ever say this sort of stuff to another human being. I also just feel like this wasn't really a movie trying to tell a story. It was just trying to show people how conceptual and highbrow the movie was and how smart all the people involved were. It just seemed really snobby, you know. It wasn't even really a movie. It was just more an advert for what high concept art thinks it is. Like, this movie seems like a parody sketch that someone would make about a wannabe director who thinks he's above industry tropes, you know, who thinks they are the industry. Yeah, I mean, I don't think this movie was terrible. I just think it was really disappointing. Nah, who am I kidding? This movie was terrible. I mean, it sucked mega cockless, which is a completely original joke that I came up with just now.
Few solid niggas left, but it's not enough. Few bitches that are really stepped, but it's not enough.
When I talk about most trending, I talk about the movie that 2024 will be remembered for. Now, there are many picks I could have taken. You know, Mega Cockless was one of the ones I could have picked. You've got things like Terrifier 3, which were up there, and even Borderlands was a film that arguably could have been put in the category, because people remember that being this year because of how fucking shite it was. But I like to think in an optimistic sort of way that good films will be remembered better in the future than bad films are. And that's why I've gone with Dune Part 2. Now, I wasn't as obsessed with this movie as a lot of people were, the first film, as a lot of people were. I mean, I really liked it, but I just, you know, I didn't think it was particularly mind-blowing considering I grew up on things like Star Wars. And I know the source material from Dune comes first, but shut up. I do think Part 2 was a lot better than the first one. I think it was a great installation of the series, and I like the direction that the movie franchise is going in. I really enjoyed the conflict escalation in this movie from the first film. I felt like there was a lot more at stake in this movie than there was in the first, and I think they had some really great performances, particularly Timothy Chalamet Bing Bong. who may have an outside shout at an Oscar win for next year, maybe, who knows. Ultimately, I think this movie was an easy pick for the most trending, as I'm still seeing edits and commentary about the film now, months after it was released, and it has had by far the biggest impact on global cinema this year.
Few solid niggas left, but it's not enough. Few bitches that are really step, but it's not enough.
Bruh, why is the Joker singing? I mean, when it was announced that there was going to be a Joker sequel, I was already concerned, because the first one wasn't exactly a masterpiece, and the story really did not need a second installment. When I heard it was going to be a musical, I was dumbfounded. I thought maybe it was a parody or something, but no, it was real, and it was being completely serious too. And then I saw the trailer and I just found it hysterical. Then I saw the movie and I was horrified. I mean, this film legitimately does nothing well. The plot is obnoxious and jarring. It revolves around the Joker not wanting to be the Joker, which completely undoes everything from the first movie. The pacing is atrocious. You can never tell what's going on. The music makes me want to commit suicide. Lady Gaga's character is the most frustrating character I've ever seen, and her acting was so one-dimensional and flat. She was just, oh, look at me, I'm crazy. Ugh. Even Joaquin Phoenix looked tired and uninterested in this movie. And seeing as he was pretty much the only redeeming quality of the first film, to lose that in the sequel showed how hopeless the film was from the very beginning. Now, Borderlands was an option I considered for this category, but I was never a huge fan of the game, so I'm not as emotionally invested in it as other people are. And also, the film was bad. Like, Borderlands was bad. But it was sort of a funny kind of bad. It was like, oh, they tried. Joker 2, you can't even say that. Joker 2 is just aggravatingly bad. It upsets me how bad it is, especially as someone who loves Batman. It was a bloated, moronic and unnecessary movie that achieves nothing and has completely tarnished the cinematic legacy of one of the greatest villains of all time. Fuck this movie, and fuck you, Todd Phillips, as well, you bastard.
Few solid niggas left, but it's not enough. Few bitches that are really step, but it's not enough.
Now, I didn't speak about this movie too much in the most trending category because I wanted to talk about it more here because I knew this was going to win. This movie was epic. And I mean that in every sense. Scale, soundtrack, action, everything about this film was so grandiose and epic and large in scale, and I just loved every minute of it. I really appreciated the detail that went into all aspects of the story. As the first movie came out 2 years ago, I had forgotten large portions of the story so far. Yet, thankfully the progression in this story helped to remind me, and I was completely engaged with the story throughout, and I really understood what was going on. And despite how convoluted it appears, the story was actually very simple, and I like that they have lots of different aspects that all play into the story, and I like how there's minor conflicts going on all the time throughout the through lines of the story. Ultimately, though, this story is just a tale of vengeance and those oppressed fighting back against their oppressors in order to reclaim their homeland. And as a woke, imperial-hating libtard, I found that very compelling motivation. I thought the whole third act especially was just absolutely breathtaking. The pacing was immaculate. It was so fast-paced. And as it finally crescendoed with Paul claiming the power he was owed and fulfilling his destiny, and he does it in such an exciting way too. He breaks the rules and you can see the darkness brewing inside of him, which Timothée Chalamet portrays perfectly. And you can see that maybe he's becoming a bit of a megalomaniac, but he's also sort of like still a lovable hero. Also, that final sword fight was great. I liked how we actually saw Paul take damage, which not only shows that he's not invincible, but it also showed how familiar of an opponent Fade Rotha really is. All in all, this was an easy best movie pick, and I cannot wait for the third installment in this series, which will surely conclude what has been an amazing story. But let me know what you guys thought. What did you think was the best movie? What did you think was the worst movie? Let me know how fucking stupid I am for my takes in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.